You are now tuned into VOK on WARG, a podcast of Ice and Fire affiliate. And now, the review no one's been waiting for. After so many delays, finally, Halloween can begin.
No. Now it ends.
Welcome, gentle listener, to another edition of the Vassals of Kingsgrave podcast. I'm your host, Kevin, also known as Kevin Pendragon on Discord, and I'm joined today by my co-host, Glen.
Hi there, Glen. My name is Glen Dagos Rivers on the forums and Discord.
And today we will be discussing 2022's Halloween Ends, the third film in the Blumhouse requel trilogy. Directed by David Gordon Green and co-written by Green and some other writers. It stars Jamie Lee Curtis, Andy Matichak, Rohan Campbell, Kyle Richards, Will Patton, and it features James Jude Courtney as Michael Myers in a cameo appearance. Halloween Ends was released to overwhelmingly negative reviews from critics and moviegoers. As the time I wrote this, it was sat at 39% on Rotten Tomatoes and 45% on Metacritic. So before we begin recording the actual episode, I just want to say that getting together to record the episode, just doing this, how many times have we tried?
Many. So some my fault, some your fault. So initially it was just an issue of, I think I got confused with the time difference, and I was expecting to see you logged in at maybe it was 7 p.m. my time, but then that would have been too late.
Yeah.
It was basically a time difference issue the first time. Then the second time, I can't remember what happened, but you had maybe forgotten that it was, you had thought it was a different day.
Yeah, I kind of forgot.
Then I done the same thing to you the next time, and then before we knew it, it was December, and then initially we wanted to record it before Halloween and have it released on the website for Halloween as the Halloween episode, but then because we never got around to recording it, then we kept delaying it, and we talked a few times about recording in December and November, but luckily we've got something together now.
Yeah, we've been trying. We've been fighting for our lives since since November of 2022 to get this episode out. I wanted to mention that because we've done all the other Halloween movies already. So we're kind of like the Halloween homies. We're the Ghoul guys. And maybe people have been waiting for our opinions. I don't know. But we have been trying. And we finally got it together. And we're here today to discuss this movie. And I wish we had good news. But I don't want to speak for you, but I don't think you like this movie either.
Well, I was thinking back at the time. I had gone to the cinema to see it, and then I came back and sent you a message saying just out the cinema, and I gave it a 5 out of 10 at the time. I think, I'll reserve judgment at the moment until I watch it again, but I've just bought it on DVD, and which should arrive in the next few days. So I'm going to watch it again, and I think possibly I could bump it up to a 6 out of 10, but it's certainly... Well, it's not the worst in the Halloween series, because I would put the Rob Zombie movies in that category for myself. Those are movies that I just never watch, but it's certainly sort of somewhere in the middle in terms of the Halloween. It's not the best, but it's not the worst.
No, it's definitely not worse than the Rob Zombie movies. I do think Resurrection is still the pits. It's still the the lowest of the 7 hells when it comes to Halloween, the Halloween franchise. But I do think that this movie, taking the opportunity that it had, having Jamie Lee Curtis come back after what happened with Halloween Resurrection and that mess, having her come back, having so many of the original stars come back, you have all this potential, and then you squander it on what is essentially this homage or this love letter to Stephen King and what is that movie? The car movie, Christine. And then
Oh, yeah.
to be so heavily inspired or influenced by Halloween 3, which did not have Michael Myers in it, because this movie does not have Michael Myers in it. It's just such a missed opportunity. I have not felt this disappointed since I went to go see Prometheus in theaters. I know a lot of people that defend that movie to this day, but to have Ridley Scott come back like so many people wanted for the Alien franchise, and for that to be the movie was a huge letdown. And for this to be the last time Jamie Lee Curtis is ever going to face off against Michael Myers, I want to throw myself down. I want to climb up that spiral staircase in this movie and just throw myself off, because that is just so disappointing. But let's no, sorry.
Well, it goes back to when we first done our review of the 2018 movie, and I had said that every time they reboot this franchise, they come back with something that's really strong. And the 2018 movie had some of the best ratings since probably the original movie in 1978. But then I had a feeling that these follow-up movies would not be as good. And as we predicted, so both financially and also quality-wise as a movie, there was an obvious downfall in both of the movies since the 2018 movie.
Mm-hmm.
And then with this one, it had one of the worst second weekend falls of like a major movie. So an 80% drop from weekend 1 to weekend 2.
Yeah, that word of mouth, I'm pretty sure that
absolutely
took the wind out of the sails, because people, I would say that some of it might have been to COVID, because they had to do the dual releases of like direct to streaming and also in theaters.
That's right. It's the Peacock thing, how much that actually impacted on people going out to see it. So that is one thing, because you wouldn't have that with the first movie. The 2018 movie had no Peacock, but then the other two did. So that might have had I don't think a huge impact to the box office, but there might have been a few million that decided to watch it at home rather than go out to the cinema to see it.
Yeah, I don't think it had a huge impact. It did do something, but I do think the quality had a much more of an impact on who's coming to watch it. All right, so as is tradition for a VOK episode, we will be rating using a unique system, and I think this time we can do pumpkin pies. So, Glenn, using the 5 pie system, how many would you give Halloween Ends? And then you could do your whole review thing.
Yep. Okay, I'll give it a 3. So 3 out of 5. So things that I did like about the movie is that I guess from, if we use the trilogy, well, I think that the trilogy works together, the 3 movies back to back. I can see that they've started to sell each of these movies as its own trilogy on DVD. So one follows the next, and I feel like it's good that they have I guess the first movie followed by the second, and then I guess sort of the Halloween Ends to tie it up. So I really liked the Corey story. I know that a lot of people hated it, but I did like following that story and seeing where it went. I know that a huge criticism of the movie is that Michael Myers is hardly in the movie, but then when I was looking back over the other movies, I realised that typically Michael Myers isn't in those movies either, but it just felt like more prominent compared to this movie. Things that, of course, good to see, of course, Andy Matichak and Jamie Lee Curtis back for it. I guess things that I didn't like was the ending. So I feel like if the ending had a much better way to kill Michael Myers, then like even even when I was in the cinema at the time, I could hear people all around me saying, that was horrible, that was rubbish, blah, blah, blah. So I feel like the ending is where it could make it a much better movie. That, like, if we look back to Halloween H2O, which isn't a great movie, but it's got one of the best ending. Well, it's got the best ending of the Halloween series. Then I feel like if they had something really good, like a good way to end Michael Myers, which I didn't think they had in this movie, then it could have maybe made it up to maybe like 3.5, maybe a 4 for myself. So I didn't like the ending. I did think that it maybe was a bit too long compared, like maybe if you shaved off maybe 20 minutes of it, then it would have been just right. Yeah, too much focus on Corey compared to our star, which is, of course, Laurie.
The ending, I do agree with you about the ending. I like the procession scene. Oh, one thing, I tried to avoid spoilers as much as possible, but I got on YouTube and like on my recommendation page, someone had uploaded like Halloween procession scene, and like you already know what that means. So I was like, what? How? I wasn't even on Peacock or anything. How would you? I got spoiled that way. But I do like the idea of the procession scene. I like everyone coming together, kind of Avengers style, to like deal with Michael Myers, since he's supposed to have been this huge threat. Mm-hmm. But I don't like the blend his body up scene. Like, I know that's something that like fans talk about. Like, when you get the killer, you gotta blend him, or you gotta chop him up and send his body to the four corners of the earth. I think it's either fire or decapitation. Like, that's much more interesting to see than putting him in a giant car crusher. Mm. And about the ending too, it's another scene again where, because Michael's not interested in Laurie, we have to contrive a way for him to be brought to her house. So it's not like this movie has nothing about them coming together to fight. It's kind of just like an accident again that they have this final battle. So it just feels really empty. But let me give my pumpkin pie review. So yeah, initially I was going to give it like 2.5 pies out of 5, but I'm going to bring it down to a 2. I kind of want to give it a 1. Like I mentioned earlier, I feel like they had a lot going for them, because no one was expecting Halloween reboot. When Jamie Lee Curtis died in that movie, we kind of just figured, okay, that's it. This is never going to happen again. But then she comes back for another series, and it starts off really good, and then they just drop it almost immediately with Halloween Kills. I went back and listened to our episode, and I kind of didn't express during that episode how much I didn't like it. I know we kind of had fun talking about it, but yeah, I was really disappointed with that. So my expectations were really low with this movie. And then we get the Corey Cunningham story, and I am one of those people that I don't like the character. I feel like he should have been introduced in Kills or Part 1, or Halloween 2, 2018, excuse me. Either that, or have that boyfriend character be him. Someone else mentioned, yes, I was watching a different review, and someone else mentioned that the boyfriend character should have been Corey Cunningham from the beginning. So he's not this new element that comes out of nowhere and steals the show. I think it's a really wrong-headed idea to make Halloween Ends be an homage to like a different movie about a killer car. I've never seen Christine. I'm pretty sure it's a good short story by Stephen King, or a good novel, but it just has no place here in this Halloween franchise. I think that this movie, the plot was really simple. It should have been simple. It's just Laurie hunts Michael. Laurie finds Michael. They fight, and she kills him. I've seen other reviews where people say that's kind of what's always happened. It's boring. It's stale. We've seen it again and again, but we've never seen it really good. Like, can we get that very basic salt and pepper story, but really done well? If we could have gotten that this would have been an excellent sequel, because no one's really going into a Halloween movie expecting to have their, to have their expectations be subverted. Excuse me. No one's coming into this with like a Game of Thrones mindset of like, I want this to reinvent the genre. This birthed the genre. Just let it be good, right? So yeah, I was very disappointed that they just didn't follow the very simple formula, and they made it about this new guy who, I don't find him very interesting. The whole thing with him and Laurie's granddaughter, I forget her name. It feels weird. It kind of, at points I was thinking that maybe they were going to like go down a dark path together and start killing people together, and this was going to have to be something Laurie has to deal with. But no, it's just Corey. And then the mystical aspects that we'll get into with the him being connected to Michael and having these healing powers and the transference of evil as a virus. All interesting ideas. But then again, that goes into like, we're explaining what Michael is and where he comes from and what he can do, which I don't think Halloween movies should do. So yeah, I think that making this movie into Halloween 3 and changing the way it looks like, because this movie is very blue, like the color scheme is much different than the previous two movies. Like this one just doesn't fit in. It just stands out as like something. It feels like the start of a new franchise rather than the end of an old one, because I just got the feeling the entire time they were making Corey Cunningham the new Michael Myers because they were going to kill Michael, but they don't want that character to die. They don't want the shape to die. So that's why he was introduced. And their names are the same. They both wear, the blue jumpsuits, whatever. Isn't it so convenient that Corey Cunningham is a mechanic and that he has a blue jumpsuit so he doesn't have to go find one? It just feels so weird and forced and out of place. But those are my rambling thoughts. Two pumpkin pies to the face of David Gordon Green, who in the interviews I've read, like this, all of this was like intentional. Like he wanted to go in this direction. He wanted for this to be Christine and to be a love letter and to be a romance. And it's just like, it's Halloween. Michael kills people. Michael dies. That's it. Mm-hmm. That's all. So yeah, those are our reviews. We're going to take a quick commercial break, but when we come back, Glenn and I are going to discuss more of the movie. And now a word from our sponsor. This was going to be a really funny joke if we got it out during Halloween, because I was going to do a Silver Shamrock commercial, but now it doesn't really work. We'll do something else.
Happy, happy Halloween, Halloween, Halloween. Happy, happy Halloween, Silver Shamrock. Happy, happy Halloween, Halloween, Halloween. Happy, happy Halloween, Silver Shamrock.
But so we're back. You talked a little bit about this trilogy, it fits, it all goes together. But originally that it was supposed to be just Halloween 2018 and
That's
Halloween
true.
Ends.
And just on the back of the success of Halloween 2018, they then decided on these. No doubt, even if I guess Halloween 2018 did maybe $50 million at the box office, there would have been sequels, but because it was such a huge success for the franchise, then this prompted this trilogy of movies. So yeah, with the same creators, the same stars reappearing. So if 2018 wasn't as big as it was, then no doubt we would have got maybe a movie like this at some point, but because it was as successful as it was, then this, 4 years, well, in fact, if it wasn't for COVID, we could have been talking about this movie last year.
Yeah. This was supposed to have been a done thing a long time ago, like just two movies and then it ends. But they got greedy. Researching this, it's the studio interference into the Halloween franchise. It just never works out. And I don't know why they insist on doing it. Just let the people make the movies and sit back and rake in the cash. Like that's all you have to do. But they insisted on Halloween Kills, which it's not a bad thing. I do think that, like Michael Myers, the story is very straightforward. He appears on Halloween and he kills. So for Halloween Kills, it just continues the night he came home again. But I do think something I didn't mention in my review, but like making Halloween Ends happen years into the future, I think that it steals some momentum. It ruins the momentum of the franchise. It should have all been on that one Halloween night.
I agree.
So it just feels very awkward for this to be happening later. But overall, I don't think the idea of a trilogy is bad. I just think if they wanted to have one, they needed to have thought of that before. Well, they couldn't anticipate the success of the movie, this feels like it doesn't have a plan to it. Even if we remove Halloween Kills, I don't feel like Halloween 2018 really moves into this movie. Do you feel like there was like an overall plan to it, or did they just make it up as they went along?
There are points in Halloween. So going back to our first conversation, I can't remember if I said this at the time or if I have said it during a podcast, or maybe I've just said it in a Skype conversation. But I said that I always thought that they would bring back the Laurie is Michael's sister thing, because after repeated viewings of the 2018 movie, I thought that there was hints that there was something more to it, which turned out was not true at all. That there was no, any hints that you see in those other movies. Nothing actually happened in this movie. So going back to when we talked about Halloween Kills, and we were talking, one of the things that we both said is we thought that the house had something to do with Michael Myers, and that had nothing to do with the story. So I did think when I read about the story and what this movie would be about, that we would see more. I guess it was set 4 years later for a reason, that we had to see the impact of COVID and people keeping their distance and following all the guidelines, but we never really seen that in this movie, so I didn't really get the point of it.
No, they were supposed to mention, they said they were going to mention COVID in the movie, and I remember we were both against it because yes. I think at the time we were still in the midst of lockdown, and it was kind of like, I don't want to be in a pandemic in real life. I don't want to hear about it in a movie. And movies today they didn't mention it in Pearl, of course, the prequel to the I think it's Ty West's movie X. They don't mention COVID in that movie, of course, because it's set in the past, but they do have people walking around wearing masks. And then in the Glass Onion movie, they have mask wearing people because of COVID. And it just makes me so exhausted. But I think making it 4 years later, and then Laurie is not really obsessed with the death of her daughter. She kind of got over it. So the promise that the movie Halloween Kills made was that I'm coming for you, Michael. You killed my daughter. I'm going to get you. But in this movie, she's baking pies and she's dealt with her grief and she's kind of over it. And she's more like Jamie Lee Curtis in this movie than Laurie Strode. I've heard other people say that, but that's what I felt my first watch, when she's like cursing up a storm and she's talking about tits and sex and stuff. I'm like, that's what I see when I see an interview with Jamie Lee Curtis.
I did think that they had to do this for a reason, that all the trailers had that moment where Michael opens the door. Well, it turns out that was Corey, but Corey opens the door and Laurie's behind the door and she's got a gun. Mm-hmm. So I did think going into the movie, right, so obviously they can't start with that, because otherwise that means that Laurie dies, and they'll probably want... Well, we did talk last time that, we thought maybe Laurie would die in this one, and then Andy would live... Not Andy, Allison would live.
Yes.
And she would be the final girl. And then that symmetry of both Laurie and Michael dying at the same time to complete the series. But then... which they were sort of going in that route that Michael was going to kill Laurie, and then Allison would... That's what I thought was happening, that, Laurie had the upper hand in the situation, but maybe got a bit cocky, and then that led to her dying, and then Allison would have come in and then killed Michael, but in the end, of course, Michael dies in the end, and everyone lives happily, well, except for Corey. And then with the trailers did begin with that scene, which I knew would actually happen towards maybe the middle or at the end of the movie. So I can see the point that they had to have some other story in the background. 'Cause you can't have that scene towards, towards the start of the movie. 'Cause otherwise, where would you go for the next 90 minutes?
Exactly. Yeah. And that's the problem. Like, as always, I watched the first couple of seconds of the trailer and I was like, that's all for me. So I went back after I watched the movie to watch the trailer, and the final battle between Michael and Laurie, because it's their only confrontation, is the entire trailer. So you're just you can, like, what you're doing, like what you did saying, like, if this happens at this point, this can't happen until this other point in the movie. When you see the trailer, like, you can piece together the movie, and it ruins the experience. So I'm glad I didn't watch it. Yeah, they have no interaction, but at the end of the movie, and they do this thing where it's like he grabs her, and there's a possibility he's going to kill her, and she flashes back through all the other movies in her mind, and it's kind of like, remember Halloween, remember the past. It's all been building to this very moment where Laurie might die, and I felt nothing. Like, I felt no anticipation. Like, when he comes in the house, it's kind of a well-directed scene where she's in the kitchen. It's like she's on the ground and she kind of senses the shape is here, right? Because she doesn't see him, but she knows that he's in the house, and she's getting herself prepared to fight him. So that, I like that moment. And then there's the part where Michael puts his mask on and she casually walks behind him in the background. So she's doing the whole, I'm kind of a killer too, Michael, get ready for me. That whole thing is supposed to be, again, this building that we've been building up to this, but the rest of the movie has nothing to do with Michael and Laurie. So when you get to Michael and Laurie, I felt nothing. And it was so disappointing that the final battle, it could have been between anybody. If she fought Corey and that was it, it would have been the same feeling, because she does fight Corey, and like, Corey comes to her to kill her, because again, it's more about her and him than it is about her and Michael. So I guess the question is for you, like, did you feel as a Halloween fan when it came down to the two heavyweights, Michael and Laurie, fighting for the final time? How did you feel?
I feel like, yeah, anticlimactic. They needed to have it in a bigger space, I think. Just having it in that tiny kitchen where, very small space, suddenly Michael's on the kitchen table, and then Laurie's, I guess, slitting his wrist, slitting his throat, blah, blah, blah. And then when Alison came in and she said the thing about, someone said he's dead now, and she said it's not enough. I liked that as a line, but then the whole execution of the next part I didn't like. But the final battle, I knew that would be, closer towards the end of the movie, but it did seem very random that it just happened that way, instead of some build up to it. That maybe, like, ideally it would be that maybe she sees him down the street and then there's no chase, and then she lures him in a trap into the house, and then, or even when, there's that moment when she confronts Corey about seeing Alison. That's where I think the build-up should have started. That maybe you look at the window and there's Michael, and that's where the final, the final run of the movie should have been. Yeah,
definitely a lot more of, we are building to this moment. This is the last time that Jamie Lee Curtis on screen is going to fight this character. And I apologize for anyone listening that you might be thinking he's just rambling. I am very passionate about this franchise. I do have a set of notes that I am working from, and I am not reading them because I am just going from my gut with how much I don't like this movie. So I do apologize if I'm rambling. But I guess
what did you think of when Jamie Lee Curtis wrote that she was on Jimmy Kimmel, I think, and she said that she signed a contract, well, a fake contract, that she'd never be in another Halloween film.
Well, I hope she can do like a Jamie Lee Curtis thing. A very Jamie Lee Curtis thing to do would be to take that contract, tear it up, and say, "I'm coming back."
Mm-hmm.
I don't give. That's not legally binding. Contact my lawyer.
No, it's not.
Give the finger to the camera, or whatever, and do another movie. But I don't know if I would want another Halloween movie. I do have an idea of like what my ideal sequel would be. Would it even matter if she can? Of course, they can come back and do another one. They can reboot the franchise as many times as possible. But I don't know if I'm even in the mood for another Halloween. Not that I'm done with the franchise, of course. But I think that, well, something I want to get into towards the end of the recording is like, what would now that we have so many different timelines, we can talk about it now. Since we have so many different timelines, people are picking and choosing which one they consider to be their headcanon. So what would be your your ideal Halloween franchise? Like, which movies do you think is your headcanon?
Oh, yeah. So it would be Halloween 1, Halloween 2, H2O, and then stop. That's the perfect Halloween franchise for me.
Yep, that's completely agree with you. I think the Halloween H2O timeline is the one I pick because the decapitation is the best ending. It's what you always wanted someone to do to Michael, and it's so satisfying the way the movie just cuts to the credits, the relief on her face. It's good. I mean, it's not a great movie. We talked about the mask not being very well. The person playing Michael is not the best stunt Michael Myers ever, but her coming back was cool. The ending was really cool. Her fighting him was really cool. Like they were just going to town through the whole college. Was it college or high school? The private school, they tore it up.
Oh yeah, the high school.
They tore it up. She stabbed him off a balcony. He was flipping tables. It was just really, really good. So that's my ending. But for this movie, one thing that was confusing to me is the relationship between Corey and Michael. So I don't know how to really approach this because, well, with Corey, I didn't understand why he was emulating Michael more than just becoming his own unique serial killer. Because even if Michael transfers some of his evil into him, or see, it's hard to talk about this because, well, let's start from the beginning. Was Corey always evil, or was it a transference of evil? What do you think?
Well, I think what the movie's trying to say is that Corey is a good person, and then because this one incident happened, which was an accident, but he's viewed as a villain in the town. I may have thought a bit too much about it, but I kept sitting there thinking, how would he get a job, and did he go to prison, and all these sort of things which you're not really supposed to think about, but the town has turned against him because of this incident that he's killed this 7-year-old boy, which was an accident, but they don't think it that way. So because of that happening, then that has turned him into a villain, and he could be a good person, but he's always going to be viewed as a villain, so he thinks that he might as well become what these people expect of me. I don't see how that relates to Michael Myers, since he did kill his sister intently.
Yes.
But it's supposed to be... I think we're also supposed to think that way about Michael, that he continues to kill because the town all see him as the person that killed 6 people back in 1978.
So for Corey, I was leaning more so like maybe he had like a seed of evil lurking within him, because in the beginning of the movie, when he does kill this kid, a lot of movies these days are like really enjoying killing kids, because there's a really gruesome kid death in Megan, which is also shown in the trailers. I'm gonna stop.
I'm going to say that I hate that about horror movies, that kids always get a free pass. So in those, like in the 2018 movie, there's been quite a few moments throughout the Halloween series where Michael, or even in the Friday the 13th series, when Jason have avoided killing children when they could have. And it's like, I always question why. So, oh yeah, we were talking about when Michael comes into the house, kills the mother, and then leaves a baby there.
Mm-hmm.
And I always thought, why didn't he just kill the baby? So I do think that, you know, I don't think the kids should have a free pass. If you've got a serial killer, then he should be killing everyone. So I never understand that whole logic of, oh, just leave the kids alone and then leave. So that's refreshing that I guess more and more movies are now doing that.
I forget what I was watching, but like someone had said maybe he didn't kill the baby because the baby has no concept of like death. They were definitely overthinking it, but it was like maybe because like the baby can't realize like I'm being murdered and Michael wants you to know he's being murdered. But yeah, he killed that kid Kevin in the first movie. And,
teenager though.
Yeah. And then part 2, it was like a preteen he killed and took his mask. But I feel like movies these days, they're making up for old time, for like lost time with all these kids that didn't get killed because they are slaughtering kids a lot. But the point I was trying, what was it? Oh yeah, with Corey, I feel like, because in the beginning when he kicks that kid, or he kicks the door and kills that kid, he's in the room, he's like, open the fucking door, I'm gonna fucking kill you. And it's like, I get you're scared, but saying something like that is kind of dark. So I was wondering, like, maybe it was always there. It just needed someone to tap into it.
That's a good point.
And one other thing, a side note, is like, okay, you live in an era of tablets and smartphones and whatever. Corey knew the parents were coming home. Why was he freaking out like that? Just sit down and wait 20 minutes. You didn't have to blow up like that. I'm not saying his lack of patience is like a sign of him being evil, but like I didn't get the whole need of Michael Myers wasn't in the room with him, so I don't get why he was so upset. But to go on about his whole descent into being like a serial killer, like he says like there's that part where he goes because he gets pushed off a bridge, and so throughout this whole movie, he's being bullied by some band geeks, which is kind of funny. So during one of these confrontations, he gets pushed off a bridge and falls and hurts himself. And it's kind of like maybe he's dead, maybe he's not. And the kids run off to leave him there. And Corey's like, he's like in his mid-20s and he's being bullied by these teenagers, which is kind of funny. So he's dragged into a sewer by Michael Myers. And it's like Michael has been hiding here since Halloween Kills, and he's this decrepit old shadow of himself, but he gets stronger the more he kills. So it's like Michael dragged him here to kill him. And so he escapes, but he knows Michael is down there, and he has, I think, frequent visits to Michael. He brings him victims. So the point I'm trying to get at is like, why did he feel the need to take Michael's mask and become Michael instead of being Corey? Like, he had his own scarecrow mask. Be the scarecrow killer. Like, I don't get him needing to be Michael. Do you have any ideas on that?
Is it not because we have that moment where Michael's just about to kill Corey and it feels like, you know, there is that transfer of evilness like you were talking about, and then Corey doesn't get, it's not like in that instant Corey becomes Michael or there's a body switch, but he does get some of the evil from Michael, and because this mask is that ultimate weapon that Michael uses for his identity, that Corey wants to use that too.
So one other thing. So Michael in the original movie, he got his mask at a corner store. How about That's you, true. Corey Cunningham, take your ass
Good
to the
point.
corner store and get your own mask. I don't get why he needed that specific mask, unless they're saying, we discontinued this mask for whatever reason, which I doubt, because Ben Tramer walked his ass to the corner store and got a mask. And it would be popular. It would be something that people would recreate and sell on Amazon or Etsy stores. He can get his own thing. So that's why I kept thinking that this movie was more about Corey becoming the new Michael, because they want him to have that specific mask so he looks like that specific version of Michael, so we can carry that on. But then he gets killed. So, but then, do you remember in the when he's in the cave, the sewer system, you can see like a carving of Michael's face in a wall?
No, I didn't notice that part.
So like, yeah, when Corey's in the sewer, he's like, Michael's in like this crevice, like huddled out, and when he passes by, Michael grabs him, and like you can see like Michael's face or it's somewhere in the sewers. Like there's like a shadow of his face like carved into the wall, and I have no theories on that. I do think that this is a cynical thought, but I do think that there are little mysteries that they drop into these movies so they can have like people like me and you, podcasters, YouTubers, talk about them that don't mean shit. Because like why was he staring out his sister's window? Let's talk about that for a 15-minute episode. Things you missed in Halloween Ends. There's a carving of his face on the wall. Like, it doesn't really mean anything. And I have no theories. I just feel like it's just mystery box nonsense by the writers. So to talk about Michael in this movie, we have to kind of talk about the space or the time that happened in between the last movie and this one. So at the end of Kills, he slaughters a bunch of people, including like 2 legacy characters. Then he kills Laurie's daughter with a heavy police presence nearby. We're supposed to believe that he then hides out in the very town where he killed dozens of people, cops, firefighters, and he did not get caught. I cannot. I thought this movie was going to have Laurie like travel cross country looking for him, or this Halloween, for whatever reason, he came back. Do you find it believable that he could have hid out for this long in the very place he killed dozens?
It's sort of like going back to Halloween H2O, and you sort of think, well, if he's been missing for 20 years, where was he?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's I don't think you could, like, if it was an actual serial killer that's killed I think over 30 people in Halloween Kills, plus you've got the people that he killed in the 2018 movie, so all in one night it's about 40 or so people that were murdered, then I'm sure you would have, hundreds of police out looking for him in that town. So I don't think you could hide if it were, a real story.
No, it's really hard to believe. And it's like, so yeah, I have in my notes, because I went back to and watched the dead meat kill counts. He has killed 47 people, including 2 cops and 9 firefighters.
Oh, wow.
So I don't understand the storytelling choice of having him just be right in the sewers. And it feels just really like a disappointing, I'm not sure what to call it, like a disappointing element to the story. Like, just to have him hiding in a sewer, like, you might as well just have him hiding in someone's basement, under their bed, in their closet. I would like a more creative way of him disappearing somewhere. I would give 1 point to the Rob Zombie movies. I think in the second one, we do see that he's like a traveling hobo. So the question of where Michael is answered. So good for you, Rob Zombie. You did one better than this movie. But another point about the time between this movie and the last one, we were told that the more he kills, the stronger he gets. He killed 47 people. He should be like Super Mario, who when he gets the star, like just invincible right now. But he's kind of like aged Michael Myers. Like, he's showing his age. And then it's kind of implied that he's been killing during the interim. Right? Like, there are missing posters.
Definitely.
There's the hobo. There's a homeless person or an unhoused person who is by the sewer where Michael lives, and he's like, people go in there and they don't come out. So why is he like this? Why is he not strong?
Plus, the whole theory of that he needs to kill to become strong. Just, I mean, there's the period when he was 6 years old up until 21, where I don't think he killed anyone then.
No.
Or maybe their excuse is that he was young then, but between that time and 21 years old, no kills. Then he kills a few people in 1978, then goes into incarceration 40 years, no kills during that time.
No.
And then he's still like really strong in that 2018 movie. So yeah, I don't get the whole theory of that.
It goes back to the lack of planning these movies has. It feels like, again, I know Halloween Kills wasn't supposed to exist, but if you're writing the movie, you know that if you're writing Halloween Kills and you're deciding to say the more he kills, the stronger he gets, you have to go back to your 2018 movie and see, well, does that new element make sense? Mm-hmm. And it doesn't fit. So what you do is you don't write it into the movie. You remove it. Because in this movie, Halloween Ends, when he kills somebody, you can't see me, so let me explain what I just did. He kills people and he kind of does like this shimmy, like I'm getting stronger. Like I can feel the energy surging in my body, and I'm sitting here shaking in my chair. But you can see visually, like he killed somebody, so now he's getting stronger. And then Corey, a wound that he has on his hand seals up. Because Michael's killing, because they're both killing. So they're healing, they have a healing factor. But if that's the case, if you're trying to introduce that into movie 3, in the first movie, when Michael gets shot and stabbed and all this other stuff, we see that his fingers were shot off, but he kills people after that happens. So his hand, if his fingers don't grow back, the wound should not be there. But we see him bandaging himself up. So it doesn't make sense. It's just not making sense.
Oh, when you were saying about James Jude Courtney as a cameo as Michael Myers, is that because Michael Myers was mostly played by Nick Castle in this movie?
No, I was just saying that Michael Myers is not in this movie very much. So it's a cameo by Michael Myers in this movie.
I get it.
But yeah, the whole healing factor thing, it goes into kind of explaining what Michael is, or trying to have a set of rules for him, which is something you should never do. But another thing, the town. I feel like with each movie, the townspeople become less sympathetic, because there are people in this movie who are outright attacking Laurie for like illogical reasons. Like you antagonized him. That's why he's out. So in this movie, we find out that one of the victims in part 2 did not die. The woman who was stabbed in the neck yes, with a fluorescent light bulb, while her husband was pincushioned by Michael. So Laurie finds her outside of a supermarket, and Laurie's leaving a supermarket and she's accosted by this woman. She's like, this is why my sister is like this. And the camera pans over to her sister, who's in a wheelchair, and I'm not sure if she's in it. I'm pretty sure she's unable to speak, but I guess she's also maybe she lost the use of her legs and arms. I'm not sure, but she's not in a good state. And the sister is attacking Laurie. And then in the previous movie, we had the whole evil dies tonight townspeople, and they all led to the death of that mental patient. So every movie, you kind of come to hate Haddonfield more and more. And I don't get why. And it's also like the townspeople are to blame for Corey and for Michael as well. You talked about this earlier, that because they didn't give Michael and Corey any grace for the things they've done, that they turned them into monsters. I don't like the vilification of Haddonfield. It's terrible. Do you agree? Do you have any thoughts on like
I did sort of think that woman had a point. That because if you go back to the 2018 movie, Laurie kept saying, or she said to the policeman, that she wants him to escape. She wants to kill him. And then she gets her wish. He does escape, and she does get that encounter with him. She doesn't succeed. He doesn't die, but then he's free to then attack a lot of other people that die that night. And I guess the back of my mind, I always have, it's not just me, there are a few people that have a theory that she is responsible for crashing that bus that leads to Michael escaping. I think we talked about it on the first podcast, that it's not said in the movie, but I always have this theory that she is responsible for that bus crashing, which leads to, of course, Michael escaping, and then leads to all these events happening. So for that reason, part of me thinks she's got a point there.
We did talk about it, and it was in the original version of that story that she was going to be the one to release Michael. But I feel like the reaction she got from that woman's sister, they live in a world where she did do that. Mm-hmm. That Lori actually did release Michael, and they know she did, and it's her fault. Like, Lori didn't do that, though.
No.
And so I don't really get why people would be mad at her for him, but I guess it's an irrational, like, your sister was almost murdered, so it's a family member, so you can't lash out at Michael, so you want to do the next best thing, and there's Laurie Strode,
yes,
looking happy and whatever, so I'm going to attack her. But before I move too far from this part of the movie, this was my favorite scene in the movie, where it actually made me smile. Not the horrible state of her sister, but the scene in the supermarket where Laurie and the cop are flirting, and it's really well acted, and they're both very old and adorable, and I was just sitting there smiling, like I was enjoying myself. That was like the one time in the movie I enjoyed myself. But another weird thing, I might be off base with this, but I don't think so. I think that these movies are talking a little bit about cancel culture. And it's like Michael and Corey were canceled, but they deserve to be forgiven. I feel like that's what's happening. I have no strong evidence, but it feels like Corey and Michael were canceled. The town was wrong for canceling them. You should forgive people when they do horrible things like murder.
I feel like Jamie Lee Curtis did mention cancel culture in one of her interviews. Okay.
I'm good at film analysis, because yes. I feel it was, I just had that strong feeling like this movie is about, you've taken these two people and they did make mistakes. They were horrible mistakes. But when you don't forgive people, when you act like a woke mob and you attack people, you turn them into monsters, and see, you're the true monsters. And I'm just like, oh, please don't I hope that's not what this is about. But I think that it is. And it's to the detriment of the overall story. Like, the way you make the town full of potential victims into actual monsters. So now I don't care about anybody. Oh, that's another thing in this movie. All the victims are horrible people, and you have no sympathy for any of them. So it just kind of ruins the death scenes.
So going back, thinking in my mind, I know that there's the bullies, that they get murdered. Because this, out of the three movies, this has the least amount of kills. So I know that there are the bullies. Corey eventually dies. Then the kid in the beginning. Who else lost their lives?
His stepfather is killed by the bully by accident. His stepfather's killed by the bullies. He kills his mother. Then he kills the DJ, and he kills the DJ's assistant.
Oh, and the person, Alison was looking for this job promotion. She didn't get it, and the person that did get it, they die. She dies, and then the boss that it turns out she's sleeping with, he dies too.
Yeah, and it's those two characters are also kind of like bullies as well. They bully her. They're unfair to her. The whole thing about, because she's sleeping with him, because her coworker is sleeping with the doctor, she gets the promotion over Allison. So that's why Corey kills them, because Allison tells him about that. And then the two DJs, the homeless person, and a guy who is like harassing Allison. It's a cop in the town.
I remember now.
But yeah, it's everyone is like an antagonist to either Allison or Corey. The only innocent person really was his mother and his father, his stepfather. And the mother is really, she kisses him on the mouth.
There was that one bully that she wasn't really a bully. She was just going along with everything, but she was trying to defend Corey. And yeah, that's the one that he stands on her face.
Yeah, he does. He kills her the Sartain way. He steps on her, and that is always rough. When someone gets stepped on, it's disrespectful. It's disgusting. Her head pops open that's one of the more gruesome deaths in the movie. I guess we could talk about the kills. But yeah, my final thoughts on the victims is that I don't like in horror movies where the victims are really reprehensible and you're kind of cheering for their deaths. I know some people, not everybody's a good person. So some people sure, they're jerks and they get killed, but I don't want to be rooting for the killer. I want to, be like, oh, why did you die? I was rooting for you. I felt none of that for anybody in this movie, except the dad. He gets his head blown off. But the kills in this movie were they were good. There's that one when the bullies come to the mechanic shop that Corey works at, and he offs all of them, and his stepfather gets killed. He steps on that one girl. Another girl gets beat to death. And then there's this kind of out of focus shot of him using a blowtorch in someone's mouth. Which is really rough. And then he cuts that guy's tongue off and bangs his head onto the DJ's record table or whatever. It's some pretty good kills. And then, of course, Michael does his, I'm going to pin you to the wall and stab you with the head tilt. And I was like, oh, God, I should feel something I should be like, yes, that's the Michael thing to do. But I feel really bad that this person is dead. But overall, I'm just feeling, I've seen this 1,000 times. I do want to go on and on about how Haddonfield was made to be a town full of idiots that deserve to die. And I don't know why the writers chose that. But speaking of Haddonfield in and of itself, one thing that's not really mentioned is, Allison does do this at the end of the movie. Let me slow it down and bring myself back to the point. So at the end of the movie, Allison decides to leave town, which is something that no one seems to know how to do. Corey, I know moving is expensive. It's hard, but I really feel like when you're someone like Corey and you did what you did and everyone knows you did what you did and it's affecting your day-to-day life, it would behoove you to stack up some money and move. But everyone just stays in town. And even Lori, who lost her daughter, is still in town. I don't get it.
That's one of the things I was thinking too, that she's because she first actually the first thing that I thought is that she's just burned down her house. How does she get the money to buy this other house? She's too old for a mortgage. And I don't know what she even done. She must have had a really good job in her life to have the money to buy this new house.
Insurance scams?
Maybe.
She did some guest hosting on podcasts.
Oh, actually, that's a good point, that she, if she did have insurance on the house, even though she did commit arson and, destroy the house herself.
That's a good point, yeah.
Yeah, possibly that could be it.
I don't know what she could have done. She did mention that, was she married once or twice? Maybe she's getting some sort of spousal support.
Oh, yeah.
It really doesn't make any sense that I wouldn't mind a little subplot of where, Laurie's living in a cramped apartment because she can't make ends meet. Something like it, but she kind of just enters this movie where she's just well adjusted. She has a brand new nice ass house. Her granddaughter has a nice job. I mean, her work situation is not really great, but they don't seem too much affected by what happened. And that was disappointing. But yeah, eventually Allison does move, which she should have Laurie with her. But Laurie decides to stay in town, and she begins what seems like a romantic relationship with the cop whose name I cannot remember. Deputy Frank. That's the name I see.
Oh,
in the notes.
yes, yeah, that's it.
The notes.
One thing yes, Laurie ideally wouldn't still be in Haddonfield even after all these years. So because it's something that she had to live through, that she every day was training for that day where he escaped. Why would you stay in the same town?
Yeah, and then you let your guard down.
Exactly. And then that's one thing that I thought. Second thing is that I didn't understand why they needed to have Lindsay Wallace in this movie. So she had a big part in the second movie. It was leading to, I thought that this movie would have Lindsay, Allison, and Laurie trying to, they would be, of course, the new, or Lindsay would be the replacement for Laurie's daughter. Mm-hmm. But then she works in a bar, she does some fortune teller stuff, and then I can't even remember if she was there in that final scene where we see everyone in the town try and, come to the yard to see Michael get butchered.
I can't remember either. Yeah.
So yeah, I didn't see the point in having Lindsay in the movie since she didn't have any impact to the story. We certainly never seen a death scene or even her taking part in, the destruction of Michael in the end.
Yeah, I expected her to have a chase scene again, or a fight scene, or she's included somehow in this. I mean, I know that she's a legacy character. You expect her to do something in the movie, interact something with Michael, maybe. It's kind of what you want to happen, but it doesn't. And that's another thing that I kind of resent about this movie and Kills. It kind of does this weird thing where it's kind of like, this is a character that you like, these are things that you want to happen, but we're not going to do that. They're just going to die. So it's kind of like this movie, you wanted Lindsay back, you want to see her encounter Michael, she's not going to do that. Your expectations are subverted. That's how we tell good stories, by just by not doing the thing you want, that your audience wants you to do.
Well, the only other thing was, so I think we both believe that this won't be the final movie. So can you see, what are your thoughts on when will it come back and how would it come back?
I have ideas on that. I do think, well, they did say Michael Myers is going to come back. I believe they're going to sell the rights to a different studio or a company. I'm not sure how those things work, but they say it's not going to be with, is it through Blumhouse right now?
Blumhouse, yeah.
So it's going to go somewhere else. They're not going to produce any more sequels. That's what I think I read. I could see it happening within the next 5 years. They'll do another one. I'm hoping. I really don't know how they can do it. I think that they could create a sequel to this one. Michael's mask is still there. As I said before, there should be a whole shop There should be shops across the country, Halloween cities that have this mask. So there's always a chance for someone to do a copycat, put the thing on, put the mask on and be Michael. Because this movie introduced supernatural elements, that means that there are other people out there with the potential to be infected with this evil virus and become immortal serial killers as well. So it can happen in so many different forms. I was gonna say Laurie Strode, but Jamie Lee says she's not coming back. So I can see this happening again. Them contriving some way that Corey comes back and he's after Allison, or we just meet a new set of people and there's another white mask serial killer, or they replace, God's forbid, they recast Laurie to continue the story. That would be, if I had to do like an ideal sequel to the worst sequel, ideally follow Allison, whatever, right? Because she's the new character. The worst sequel, we replace Jamie Lee Curtis as Laurie Strode and go from there. What do you think?
I don't think they will continue this story. So I think this is the end of this version of Halloween. And I see that there is a new show called Camp Crystal Lake. So I think they might go into a TV series. So maybe, thinking back on it, throughout the last 45 years, there's only been maybe, well, the longest gap between a Halloween movie has been 9 years between Halloween, the Rob Zombie Halloween 2 and the 2018 film. And then usually it's somewhere between 5 and 6 years on average. So I think, so that was 2022. So I can see by at least 2030 that we'll have something new. That could be a new remake of the series, starting with a new, or maybe a different version of the original film. It could be a TV series. Something else they could do would be, like you were saying, have a brand new story where Michael Myers happens to be in the movie. I hope that they don't. They did touch on it a bit with this movie, but I'm hoping they never go through the copycat killer route.
Yeah, please.
I think when it comes back as a movie, then they'll start afresh and do maybe a modern version of it where a 6-year-old boy kills his sister and then flash forward 15 years.
I wanted to say I hope they don't reboot it, but I'm pretty sure they're going to reboot it. How many Spider-Men do we have? I can see them doing that.
I was saying to you that I had listened to that podcast where it's audio commentaries of that they've actually got from the DVDs. So I was listening to the audio commentary for Halloween H2O, and Jamie Lee Curtis and the director go through the whole story of they wanted to end the series but they couldn't. So I don't see that that's gone away. I'm sure that that's still a thing, that there's some legal thing that they can't end the series. So that leads us to all believe that eventually they will bring it back somehow.
It definitely is a thing. That's I believe it's written into contracts. I think one of the producers, his name is Mustafa Akkad.
Yes.
I think his son is now in charge of it because that guy has since passed away.
Yes. He
is in charge of it, and it's something written somewhere where it says Michael Myers cannot be killed on screen. And that's something his father created, and that's something he's carrying on. And I really feel like that, if that's the case, all of these movies are kind of like doomed, because to write that and to make that a clause means you cannot get that finality that you would want in a movie where, you know, Laurie finally kills Michael, that there's
Yes.
always the promise, the idea that he's going to come back kind of ruins that, like, you know, it's the end, roll credits, these people are going to live their lives, Michael Myers free. You don't really need to write that down anywhere. He can die, and then, you know, you can just have him come back somewhere else. Don't let it be known that you're never going to kill him, because people are going to they're never going to leave the theater satisfied. I remember after leaving 2018, I was walking out and some lady, a strange lady I've never met before. She looks at me in the eye. I'm looking at her, and and you can tell, but passing between us, we're like, he's not dead. And I asked her, I was like, you don't think he's dead, do you? And she was like, nope, no. We had a whole conversation, because you can just tell that's what she was thinking. But it just ruins everything. But I think a good idea for a sequel, now that we've seen a reboot of Laurie's life, what about a reboot of her daughter, whose name I can't remember right now? Jamie Lloyd.
Oh, that daughter.
Yeah. Oh, no. A sequel with Karen. No, because the actress, I forget her name. She was in the Halloween reboots with the Rob Zombie one. She was in these.
So Jamie Lloyd, Daniel Harris, of course.
Yes.
And also Scout Taylor Compton do a podcast together. I think, I can't remember what it was called, Final Girls or Screen Queens, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Did you hear the story that they had met Jamie Lee Curtis?
No, I've never heard of this or their podcast.
They were invited to the Halloween Ends premiere, and it wasn't just them. There was also Heather Langenkamp and some other big, screen queen type person was also there, and they got to do a photo with all the final girls, and it went on some magazine. But in this podcast, they describe how they met Jamie Lee Curtis, and they were so excited. They thought it would be this big moment, but then Jamie Lee Curtis was quite dismissive of both of them.
Stop it.
So they had it in their mind that, like Daniel Harris, I played your daughter for a few years, and it's the role I'm most known for. It's changed my life. You're such an inspiration to me. So she had all these things she was going to say to Jamie Lee Curtis, but Jamie Lee just stopped her instantly and was just like, I've never watched those movies, never will. I don't know who you are, and that's it.
My mouth is on the floor right now. Oh, what?
And then Scout Taylor Compton then said that she didn't want to share her story, but it was basically the same as what happened to Daniel Harris.
Oh my gosh! Why are you are sending me right now? Oh my gosh! And you know what? I believe it. I've watched. She is a firecracker in interviews, right? She's blazing. Like when she takes charge. When she's in these interviews, her personality is like 9,000. But I always thought she was at least a kind person. But I can see, based on how she's in interviews, how she kind of like dominates the interviews. I've seen a couple of her when she was making the rounds for Halloween Kills with the actress who plays Karen. And she was bullying over her during these things. Like the lady could not get a word in. And you could see on her face, she was kind of like, I have to deal with this all the fucking time. So, but I at least thought that, okay, her personality dominates. I can understand that she can be abrasive, but I always thought she was at least kind. But
I did too. Although, part of me does think, I don't know what to believe, because we've only got their side of the story, and I've seen people discuss it a lot on, Facebook groups about the Halloween series, that some think they just made up that story to get some attention, which could be true too. So, but then I know that I have heard her say in interviews, Jamie Lee Curtis, that is, of how those movies that she's not in, Halloween 4, 5, 6, the Rob Zombie movies, that those are beneath her shoe type of thing. So I can sort of see her saying that.
But to have that attitude about those movies is one thing. To like have the person who starred in it try to talk to you because you share this common thing, and you're just like, you're like, to treat her like you treat those movies is messed up. If that did in fact happen, these are all alleged, of course. We have the Vassals does not have a legal team. Do not sue us. But let me just say, I can believe it. A lot of celebrities, I'm pretty sure, are just jerks, and I can see that. True. I can see that being true. They say never meet your heroes. I have no intention. I adore her movies. I adore these movies. Not just even Halloween. I love her in other movies as well. But I would never want to meet Jamie Lee Curtis. I don't want to meet George R.R. Martin. But I can see that could be the case. Even John Carpenter has a bit of is known to be a bit brusque.
That's true.
So I can see that. Damn, that's disappointing.
It's all about the money for him.
he loves saying that. I get my money and I play my video games. But yeah, that's sad. But would you that's sad. I'm sad about that. But would you like a reboot with Jamie Lloyd?
Oh, that could in this hypothetical world, of course, she didn't die in Halloween 6. Then yeah, I could see Halloween with Jamie Lloyd, that he then tries, but then I guess without having Donald Pleasance or Jamie Lee Curtis, I don't see the movie doing that well. So success-wise, I can't see it, but I would like to see like a story involving her coming back.
Yeah, they would have to. I think in that case you would have to recast the Donald Pleasance role, or it would not be. It would. She's not a big draw. No offense to her at all as a person, but she's saying, like, advertising the movie as the return of Jamie Lloyd is not going to really bring people to the yard. But I wouldn't mind seeing like a direct-to-streaming, direct-to-DVD sort of movie like that. I think it would be cool. That would be one of the better ideas. I know Rob Zombie.
What about if John came back from H2O?
That's another good one. Because Halloween Resurrection completely forgot he existed. Also, if anyone is listening to this episode, I planned for 15, 30 minutes, and it's over an hour now. But that would be a good one. I would like that. We just really, really like Halloween.
I remember back in 2002 when this was just after the Resurrection film had been made, and I had watched it because I think it was a few months later, and I had bought it on VHS, so I had watched it, and then I was on holiday, and I spent hours in this internet cafe reading all these fan fiction scripts, and I read a really good one which was for a Halloween 9 movie, and they somehow connected all the stories together, so they had both Jamie Lloyd and John meet, and then they worked together to take down Michael.
That would be another good idea. Like, trying to combine it all, it would be a difficult task.
Very difficult, yes.
The only person, or the only kind of person wild enough to attempt that would be someone doing fan fiction. But like, yes, it would be interesting to see that happen. I feel like that would be another draw. Like, we're combining all the timelines into one. Jamie Lee Curtis is coming back. That would be another. That might be the best option, or the most intriguing. But you were mentioning like the Camp Crystal Lake TV show.
Yes.
I was reading some comics based on Halloween, and they took place back when Michael was a child, and it was all about, well, one of them was all about Michael's childhood in Smith's Grove, and he did commit some murders then.
Oh, yeah.
But it was always easy for him to, like, he doesn't speak, but it's kind of like someone dies and it's like, was it Michael Myers? Of course it was. And then I believe one of his victims was Dr. Loomis's girlfriend. And that's kind of one of the reasons why he's so invested in figuring out or killing Michael. So you can have a TV show called Smith's Grove and have a Michael do stuff.
Because as we established, Hollywood do follow trends. So Chucky, well, in fact, there was a Scream TV series.
Yes.
So there's been a Scream, I've not watched that, Scream TV series, then Chucky had a series, you've got Camp Crystal Lake, then possibly, that's in my mind the top way that they'll bring back Michael Myers through a TV show. Maybe it would be like set in the past, or, well, actually, set in the past is probably the best way to do it, since he would be in his 70s by the time they do it.
Yeah. Because he is getting up there in actual age, but then
yes,
you kind of wonder, well, the movie does tell you this, that he is being affected by his age, which he shouldn't be because he's supposed to get stronger with kills. So which is it, movie? I don't know. But there's another idea I liked, which is kind of weird, but back in the original Halloween movie, when Loomis is talking with, I believe, a cemetery caretaker, or is it another cop? Regardless, he's telling Loomis about how in a different town, a guy, like, one night he just decided to up and kill his family. And I've always wondered, like, what happened with that? Like, what is that story trying to tell us? Like, that there are people who just snap and that there are other Michael Myers out there. So, and I always wanted to, like, see a movie based on that story. Mm-hmm. Like a family annihilator. Like, maybe he has his own mask. Maybe he has his own thing, and he's out to kill his family. You know, a little Michael Myers cinematic universe. But other than that, that kind of answers the question I was going to ask in the end. Like, what is your ideal sequel? But I think that covers that. I would say, if I had to see another Halloween movie, if we could just erase these, I would like a movie that was, let's not go into the future. Ideally, let's have like a direct sequel to the original Halloween movie set in like 1970s, 80s or whatever. Or well, let's say this. It's a direct sequel to the Halloween movie, and it's Laurie Strode that's not influenced so much by Jamie Lee Curtis. She's the Laurie that you would imagine Laurie Strode would be. She's an older woman. She has kids. She's a bit of a grandma. She's baking pies. She's a little bit shy still. Like the night he came home didn't have too much of an effect on her. I want to see that mousy, shy Laurie Strode. I don't want to see this Terminator 2 Sarah Connor Laurie Strode that we've seen with when she was Karen Tate. I don't want to see this rebooted one. I want to see the shy Laurie. And then Michael comes back. So that's our review for Halloween Ends. I hope you've enjoyed. We have reviewed the other Halloween movies in this franchise, 2018, Halloween Kills, in previous episodes. Go check those out if you would like. If you're listening to this on a podcast app, please consider leaving a review, a star, something. Give us a boost. If you're watching on YouTube, like, comment, and consider subscribing. We are the Vassals of Kingsgrave podcast, and we cover not only A Song of Ice and Fire, but a lot of other related media and topics as well. And we are still accepting new members. You too can be a vassal. You too can have the Essence of Evil virus transferred into you if you would like. Go ahead and join, and it's fun. We accept new members. Join us on our Discord if you want to chat, hang out. Join us for episodes if you want to, host a podcast. Again, thank you all for listening. This has been Kevin and Glenn, your Halloween homies, and we're signing off until the inevitable reboot.
Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween. This will be out by 2023. Goodbye.
Bye.
This has been VOK on WARG. And now here's Lord Eddard Stark with the weather.
Winter is coming.
Hi again.
Hello. So I thought it was really good. It was really funny.
Mm-hmm.
For like PG-13, it was a lot more graphic than what I expected. But like I want to see it again because there's some things like about the end of it and some things about the plot that I kind of wanted more of. Have you seen it yet?
I was reading about it earlier. I've not watched it, but I was reading the plot synopsis, and would it be similar to Child's Play?
The new one, yes. The new one had the same kind of thing, like an AI doll that can adapt and learn, that eventually learns the concept of death, and so it starts killing people. Well, in the Child's Play remake, I believe it was a disgruntled employee that sort of messed with the code in the doll. You saw it, right?
Yes, I've watched that.
Yeah. So that's why he started doing his murderous rampage. But it was kind of the same thing. Like this doll it's somebody's best friend, and then it starts murdering to protect the person, and then it eventually turns on the person. So yeah, I can see similarities. But yeah, Megan was the dancing scene. I always thought like that was a scene specifically for social media, because I don't know if you have you kind of noticed like with certain movies and TV shows, they have these moments that go viral, and now news shows and movies kind of like, you can feel they're forcing these moments.
Yeah, there was I've not watched it yet, but the Wednesday series that had a dance in it, and that's gone viral. Like I could see multiple news stories about it on Facebook, and I think it was on TikTok too.
Yeah, I've heard of the dancing scene. I watched one episode of Wednesday, and it was, I wouldn't say it was bad. It was just like, maybe I'm just too old for it. It's not for me. It didn't grab my attention. I felt it was a little bit cringe. So I didn't keep going with it. But yeah, I feel like that dancing scene in Megan is kind of like the dancing scene in Wednesday, where it's kind of like a writer's room was like, we need, what's that moment? What's that thing that people are going to talk about? Because it happens and then it's just over, and it's nothing like the rest of the movie. But the movie itself overall, I give it like a B-, B+.
Oh yeah, good.
I liked it more than
Halloween Ends.
Yes. Corey Cunningham, my gosh.
Did a review of it, and I missed the review, because at that point when they done that review, I probably took maybe a few months to get into the show, but I was instantly hooked on it and watched it probably 3 times. I'm on quite a few Facebook groups that are discussing a lot of the theories surrounding it, so it has a similar vibe to A Song of Ice and Fire, that the fandom can create so many theories and fan theories from it. So really looking forward to that coming back for a second series. I think that comes back in March.
Really? I've heard about Yellow Jackets with like social media and whatnot, but I didn't expect, no one's ever mentioned that it was like A Song of Ice and Fire, so maybe I might have to look that up. I did cancel my Netflix because the price is kind of ridiculous, but there are other ways of watching Yellow Jackets. I can catch up on that.
I don't know if it is on Netflix. Certainly in the UK, it's on a channel called Sky Atlantic, but I don't know elsewhere where it's shown in America.
I'm pretty sure there's some sort of backwater streaming site, backwater streaming site where you can watch Yellow Jackets. But yeah, I thought it was kind of like a Riverdale CW kind of show, but it's not that.
It's I mean, there is because the main, well, it's split into 2 plots. So you have a plot where you're following the girls as teenagers and how they survive for a very long time in the woods in the middle of nowhere. But then you've got flashes forward and back to when they're adults. So some of them are adults, some of them are not mentioned. So you sort of wonder what happened to them.
Okay, that sounds, yeah, I might check that out. I'll check that out and also look up the show Dark that had a really strong reputation for a while. Yeah. So yeah, I think we can get into it now. We can do the whole recording thing or the whole intro thing over again.
Yes.
All right.